right, somebody has to remind me to turn this stupid thing off. Before we leave. Or it'll be a surveillance camera. Okay. Take your phones out. That's convenient. That's all right. Yeah, I don't want you to call somebody that you're very close to. I want you to call someone in that you don't talk to very often.
The herd's been to them?
Because people that you're close to already know what you're doing. Unless you can really keep a good secret. What I'm having them do each night, is to call one person that they haven't told that they're getting a license.
Mm. Yeah, that spreads fast. That way.
So let's do it.
I have no problem calling.
I know. Just giving you a hard time.
Can you round the inactive?
That's good. Nobody can bother you.
Yeah, but he's a dog. I was, but yes, I was rushing. Do you know that I'm frozen without century knowledge? So I called a friend. I'm selling all these really fine
Getting my real estate commissions.
Well, the reason I'm calling is because I'm a real estate agent, and I wanted to let you know about it.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see the reaction of people.
And anyways, I was just wanting to let you know that I'm glad I got my real estate
They
license.
wind up carrying the
And I thought you would be excited about that. I know,
Now you favors and they have money.
How to show you any properties that and also possibly help me to like, that you have someone
What do you say?
that's in real estate.
Leave a message.
Like you have them.
Yeah, I got you good. They made young to his life.
Aw,
Yeah.
but I'm just getting started, but I just wanted to let you know.
17.
Yeah, so I just took a short call.
Yeah, we can talk about developers that work.
When I go to the phone, like, it'll say 3 times, so like 3 times.
Why do you make us do that? And these people have been there for me so long. Don't do that. It's like.
Well, if you got to talk, if you got a problem talking, just
But I'm just saying, it's so weird calling people you haven't talked to, you know? Like, all of a sudden you're calling and like, they're like.
I actually have an easier
But
time
see,
going.
understand this.
I know, right?
Someone that I used to talk to a lot.
You gotta get your head on straight. And you gotta remember, you're making this call It's a business call. It is not, hi, I haven't seen you for so long.
But to them, it's like, I haven't heard from you, so why are
And
you
and
calling
seriously,
me?
I know,
I
when you talk about telephone,
I'm in my real
prospectors,
estate class.
just about everyone that I know that's really good starts the conversation with, this is a business call.
But, I just wanted to.
Oh, okay. Well, why didn't you give us a script?
That's
Because you just found you don't need one.
So anyway, consider this our call.
You just have to be willing to talk to strangers.
Yeah, and thank you for
I'm not
noticing, what
Who
did I
said
just leave it on your desk?
It's easier to talk to.
I'm an idiot.
No, like people personally.
Yeah, but.
No, I love everybody.
It's a good thing. Because it wasn't sure you're in
Did I
trouble.
say, call me dibs at that point? Because I know I can do one. All right, well, you're a blessing, thank you for everything, I'll see you tomorrow.
And then you can say,
Oh, what do you like
there's a lot of
better?
realtors out there, it's very hard to find a good one.
I already had the first person's name, like keep me in mind when your sister goes to look for a condo.
Fantastic, all right, we'll see you tomorrow. Oh, you're welcome, bye. I told my closet. Really? Yeah.
Not sure how many we have. Okay, I need to know what page we're on.
103.
103?
Like midway, 15. We just bracketed 1 through 14.
You said 115?
I think.
103, no, we were 1 through, yeah, 1 through 14. And then we
She doesn't like she likes coffee.
Oh, what do you mean? You know, I thought we.
Okay. We talked about in the last 2 pages, the process that you have to go through if you have conflicting demands over deposits.
The escrow money.
Pardon me, what page are we on? 103? Oh.
Y'all said 103, right?
Does that happen a lot? People fight over that money held in escrow? Yeah.
Let's assume that you work for a company where the company holds the escrow account instead of the title company. And you have a transaction where unfortunately it falls apart. The seller blames the buyer blames the seller, seller wants the money. The buyer says, no, you can't have it, I want my money back. As the sales associate, which one should we probably try to do first?
mediation.
How about second?
Arbitration.
How about third?
Litigation.
And then if all else fails, you can go to Frec. To tell you the truth, Frec's not interested. Because squabbles between a buyer and seller are not Frec's problem. You doing something wrong in a transaction, putting the public in danger is what they're in the business of dealing with.
Yeah, I was just thinking, can we bypass, letting them know there are conflicting demands?
Now, I don't know where I went to tell you the truth. Oh, all right. Now, we know the first thing we have to do is put them on notice that we got a problem. And important to remember here, it's not 15 and 30. Whatever time you take in that first 15 days all you have left is the remainder of the 30. So it would make sense that the first thing we'd want to try to do is mediate. So would you agree that the sales associate, if they had conflicted demands over deposits with their escrow account, that they probably should do mediation first? Everybody agree with that? Raise your hand. Let me ask you a question. Can a sales associate have an escrow account? So they wouldn't have anything to settle, would they? Anytime I get ready, I can go over the same concept day after night after night. All I gotta do is ask you a different type of question, and you all blew it. That's okay. We have another class starting a week or two after this was over.
Can you go over it one more time, because this tricks me on the test.
There's no trick. Sales associates can't do shit on their own.
I understand.
Therefore, you can't have an escrow account. You can't advertise on your own. You have to have the company's name in any type of advertising. When they use the word advertising, you understand that means everything. That's magazines, that's internet. You know, their definition is a very broad term. How about this? The broker instructs you, the sales associate involved in the conflicting demand, to take care of putting together the paperwork, the documents that need to be sent to Frec to ask for the EDO. And the broker told the sales associate, you go ahead and sign, because obviously the application for EDO is going to require the signature. Can the sales associate sign for the broker?
No.
You sure?
No.
I'm not sure. How many of you are not sure of the answer to that question is? Raise your hand.
I don't really.
You should.
What are you mumbling about that?
You got us scared. You corner us.
I like this conversation.
I don't corner you. I don't have to.
No, you
I
guys
just
don't
have to
understand.
ask you a question.
There's stuff like
There's
this that
no way
happens.
out.
Stuff like this happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in the mortgage business, I heard a big story today.
We'll talk about that later. Do you think that Fred's going to allow the sales associate to do this
No,
and sign off on it?
no.
And I told you 1,000 times, if you're not sure a sales associate can do something, they probably can't.
I heard that over the weekend.
Good. Let's hope it gets on the brain of the hand. Something we didn't talk about, and we're not going to talk about at this point, a little later, probably tonight. The fact that if you ask for an escrow disbursement order, and then you follow it, and the other party sues and wins damages because the courts did not agree with Frec's interpretation, that means as the broker, you're left high and dry because you did what Frec told you to. Somehow that doesn't seem right. And it's not, and we'll fix that problem a little later. Now, like everything else in regulatory law, there are always exemptions to how these conflicting demands are handled. You've got 3 of them at the bottom of page 102. All you have to do is highlight the word HUD.
Which one?
19.
HUD or does that hurt?
Just the word HUD, just once, that's good. So if you're dealing with HUD foreclosures,
103,
103.
If I like the word.
do me a favor, guys, if you got a question, you're not sure where you are, ask me.
Yes, can you please repeat?
Yes. On page 103, line 19,
103.
the word HUD should be highlighted.
That's it, just the two words?
Now, one word, HUD, one word. That's all you have to do to remember that whole paragraph, because it's about HUD foreclosures. The second one, I want you to highlight the star, and that's lines 23 through 27. This deals with one specific type of housing. What's that? Condo. Under the condo law, which is, I think, 712, a buyer buying a resale has 3 business days from receipt to review the condo docs and choose to withdraw and get their money back during that time period. Now, the reality is they don't have to do anything. They can just tell you, their agent, put together a release and cancellation. Buyer sign it, and you'll zip it over to the listing agent. As soon as the listing agent gets it in their inbox, deal's gone. If you've got the escrow money, that escrow money can be returned. Now, you understand that's for one specific situation. For condominiums and the 3 business days that you have to review the condo docs. If there's other issues, that's a different story. The third one, which you don't need to highlight, is financing contingency. That if a buyer makes a diligent effort to obtain the financing requested and are unable to do such during the approval period, they can put the seller on notice that they were not able to obtain the financing, present documentation from the lender, and be able to walk away.
Dale, isn't that why you like to have people pre-approved and you're driving around with them so that that can't happen?
Yes, but it can still happen.
Things still fall through, but at least you've done everything you can to.
Well, number one, I want to know within reason, whoever I'm putting in my car or following around can afford to do what I'm showing them. Besides the fact, if I come to you, the listing agent, say I got a wonderful buyer here, they're going for 80% financing, they're putting the rest down in cash, they got plenty of money to cover closing costs. Would that be satisfactory for you to go back to the seller?
You'd be happy.
They are prepared to purchase property. They got 80%, they're getting 80% financing, putting the rest down in cash, they have plenty of money to pay closing costs. Would you be okay to go back to your seller with that?
No, because it's still 80% has to be finance, still empty.
Yeah, you said they were approved with 80%, right?
Oh, they're approved? Oh, I guess that is okay.
I wouldn't touch that offer if I was the listing agent. You come to me and tell me some bullshit line about what you got, don't got, and you ain't got it on a piece of paper, I don't give a shit.
You mean, the guy said, but he didn't.
I don't give a shit what you said. In this business, you better learn real quick. It ain't in writing, it don't exist. And if they're not willing to produce evidence of their ability to purchase the property, don't bring them to my listings. Take them to somebody else's so you can waste their time. And if you ain't got the guts to do that, you better find somebody to help you. Besides the fact we have Mulaney, you don't have to do anything when it comes to financing other than have Mulaney call them. And you want Mulaney to be able to call your customers, not vice versa. Why? Because Mulaney's gonna call them when? As soon as she gets off a current phone. Or maybe immediately. Even on the weekends. Say, there's no excuse. Well, it was Saturday morning. No. Who's gonna be available? She's available. Any good mortgage person's gonna be available. If they're not, I'll find another mortgage person to work with. I work 7 days a week because of the nature of what I do. See, that's the bitch about working with buyers. You have to work 7 days a week. I have sellers. I can tell you when you can show the house. What's easier, finding buyers or sellers? Buyers.
Byron?
Why? Because as long as you can drive a car around and you know where you're going and you can answer most of their questions, they're not worried about it because they have an attorney that can review the contract, so they're cool. The seller, however, is about to hand you their $500,000 investment. And you've been in the business how long? 5 minutes, and your company is only 2 years old? I think I'll list with them. That sounds like where I want to put my listing. A whole lot more difficult. But see, here's the bad thing about having a listing. If I have the listing, you can't get to that seller unless you come through me. Another bad thing, you have listings, buyers show up. And then it gets worse. You have to take both ends of the commission. However, here's the problem with working with the buyer, seller. You lay out a list of 10, 15, 20, 30 things that you do as an agent to get a property sold. You can be on your ass every day. Wanting to know, why haven't you done this? Although you've explained it to them 10 times, why you haven't done that yet, they don't want to hear it. But all that's for another day. I have to get out of the training mode here for a second. On page 104, a quick comment about this section on good faith doubt. I had a situation, or I actually knew of a situation, where for some reason the seller and buyer just kind of disappeared. And there was a $500 escrow check. And they tried to get in touch with both parties. I think maybe they got a hold of one, but I've heard it several different versions. So as the broker, I'm not sure what to do with the money. Now, we know ultimately where could it wind up.
Well, did the deal go through or not?
Oh,
So doesn't it go back to the buyer?
I don't know where the buyer is.
Statement account.
Yeah, it could ultimately wind up in a lost and found account held by the state of Florida.
And it was in the escrow account at the real estate office, brokerage office? So
Or
can-
title company, same difference.
can't remain in the account it was in
Nope.
trust?
No. It can for a period of time.
Frec involved?
No, not French problem.
Frec doesn't care.
They
No.
can use that money or no? It has to stay in there.
Whose money is it?
Nobody.
Buyer money.
Well, we know it ain't the broker's money.
Is there a time period where it says it's no
Yes.
longer? What's the time period?
Have no idea.
No, you-
Sure,
Hold on, have a look this up.
it's not in there.
Oh.
Keep looking. This probably would be a situation where there'd be communications between either the title company or the broker with the attorneys at the Beaver. Yeah. Bottom of page 104, the last paragraph on the page, let's put a bracket around lines 39 to 46.
Page number, what is it?
Next page, is the page we're on, 104?
Now it is.
Last paragraph on the page.
Moni's page 39,
Yes, that's the last paragraph on the page.
highlight.
Bracket. Or if you like highlights, you can highlight. You want me to show you rentals? It's $500. What happens if I don't find you a rental? Oh, I'm not supposed to keep it. Frank doesn't like you to get paid in advance for something you never wind up doing. That's why when we talk about getting paid, we don't talk about getting paid first, we talk about what? And we earned it. Anytime we talked about commissions and stuff, it was always about earning the commission. Because if you can't prove you're entitled to it, it's going to be real hard to collect. On the next page. Highlight line 1 that says rental information and lists. And then put a bracket around the rest of the page, including the great lots at the bottom. What you're looking at is the A and a bar stove.
Big ones, yeah.
When I first moved down here in the middle 70s, there were companies all over the place that sold rental lists. You could go in, tell them the area you were looking for, and they'd sell you a list anywhere from 50 to $100. And you would take the list and go out and find yourself a rental. If you didn't, tough shit. No refunds. It got to the point that they were holding keys for the landlords, they were showing properties, but sounds like they should have a what? A license. Now, probably late 70s, early 80s, they created regulation for that activity. They said, okay, here's the deal. You sell a list to a customer. Customer goes out, can't find anything on the list that they like. Within 30 days, they can come back and get how much of a refund? 75%. How about this? I buy a list for $100, and thumbing through, I find 2 listings that look really nice. And one even better because it says electricity is included in the rent. So I'll call that one first. And comment was, after they stopped laughing, we've never included electricity in the rent. You pay that for yourself. So, move to the other one. Wound up renting the second property. Am I entitled to a refund? And if such, how much? Well, wait a minute. I used their list and I got a rental. You realize they basically regulated this business out of business? What's the likelihood of keeping this list current?
Not good.
Those lists still exist. They're in the newsstands. But 2/3 of them are advertising. That's how they make money now. Rather than charging for the list, they charge for the advertising space. Because you'll notice there are more ads in there than there are apartments. That's what I'm saying. They basically regulate. You know, the business still exists, but it's done in a different way now. And of course, today's world, you've got the internet, and who needs books? So I think, you know, and just general activities in the marketplace like that the rest. We know that in violating 475, since it's a state statute, there are administrative penalties administered by Frec, but there's also civil and criminal penalties. When you look at the criminal penalties, typically they're either first or second degree misdemeanors. When you look at the different violations under 475. This is the only one that is a first degree. All the rest of the penalties, violations under Frec would fall under the category of second degree. And that you'll find on the top of the next page.
What if it was a space that was advertised and it had air conditioning and the air conditioning didn't work and somebody moved in anyways?
In other words, it said it came with air conditioning. Then they have to have air conditioning. By Landlord and Tenant Act does not require there to be air conditioning. But if air conditioning is provided, and the leases also identify who pays for what. So in other words, let's say they have a problem with the air conditioner. They came out and and let's assume the tenant's liability is $100. They come out and then it's $70 because all they needed to do was flush out the drain. Versus an $800 condenser. That's generally, in 99% of leases, is going to go on the landlord side. And several ways of doing that. Landlord can pay the contractor directly, or the tenant can pay the contractor and subtract that from the rent. But all those are built into the actual lease itself.
And should you, like, if you're not sure, like, you should, if it's say if it's commercial, you should check if they have permits to rent, right? Like the city's permission to rent.
I don't know how much that would come into play with, single family, condominiums or townhouses.
Yeah,
Now, if you're talking about apartment complex,
commercial,
that's a different ballgame.
yeah.
Just remember, when they talk residential, that's 4 units or less.
Yeah.
And the regulation is different on those than on the other end. Okay, bottom of page 104. Last, there, that, no, 104, I'm still gonna be on 104, I skipped over some. Starting with line 33 on 104,
Title company?
yes. Highlight that paragraph that runs down to 38.
Can you tell me please what the escrow agent?
What's it what?
The escrow agent?
What's escrow?
Yeah, the escrow.
What is escrow? What's escrow?
That's why I asked you, I need to know the escrow.
It is the down payment that you make, and they put it into an account that is held on behalf of someone else. Fortunately,
The help for someone else?
make a reference to page make a reference to page 96.
96?
Beside of that, where you are right now, make a reference to refer to page 96. Because there's 2 paragraphs on 96 that explain escrow. That's the reason I'm making the reference
Yeah,
back.
because I studied agreement with 96 actually. These two by year.
That would be lines 2 through 15. To answer your question that you asked me.
Yes, thank you. Okay.
All right, page 106.
So we're making money now.
Try. That's the general idea. Who's the commission belong to?
Broker.
If you take a listing on behalf of the broker, and you will sign the listing agreement on behalf of the company. When we get to closing, and the closing agent's gonna cut the check, who's the check gonna be made out to? Wrong.
The sales association.
That's even wronger. The brokerage, learn to use the language.
Oh.
So it's not the broker.
I have no patience for people who won't learn to speak the language. I never learned to speak French because I couldn't translate fast enough. You ever heard French with a southern accent? Not a pretty thing.
Oh,
I speak some French.
Un petit.
My name is French, so maybe.
Now you got me all confused, I won't know how to pronounce it. You come back from closing and the seller has refused to allow the closing agent to pay the commission. What happens is they put that in escrow. So as the associate, you come back, all bent out of shape, because they wouldn't give you a check. Broker says, don't worry about it, no big deal, it wasn't a big commission, I don't want to make an issue of it. Since the broker refuses to go after the money, which obviously you're entitled to, can you go after the money?
No.
probably not. You should quit your job.
And if you could, who would you have to go after? Which broker?
Your boss.
In other words, you mean I'd have to go to Ben and demand my money? And Ben's gonna say, I didn't get any money, so I don't owe you anything.
Yeah.
Well, would the question be, what would constitute that? What right would the seller have to not want to pay the commission?
No.
Are you representing the seller?
Yeah.
Take them out to margarita night. I'll throw it on.
Isn't
They
that,
signed the contract.
isn't that analogous to an employer who doesn't pay their employee?
Mm-hmm.
So doesn't the employee have the right to be paid for their performance or
Mhm.
services? So they may have to become adversaries then.
Who's they?
The agent and broker. The relationship is employer-employee to an extent. I mean, it's analogous.
Right.
If you don't get paid at any job where you perform the services
Mhm.
per contract, then you can,
So let's go the other way. Let's assume that your broker's been out of shape as you are and says, we'll go get that money. So we get all of Kristen and she writes some nasty attorney letters. As the sales associate, can you be involved in this process of collecting the money?
Probably not.
You sure?
I think it's all up to the broker.
Why?
because what the new is the new.
That's true, but why?
Only he can put the lien in the
Then,
property?
we signed everything over to them, we work for them, so it's they're above us.
Only the broker can initiate the action.
The commission's the broker.
And the commission's still gonna be paid to who?
The
Broker. Now, once the broker has the money, now your ICA kicks in and says, any monies that I help generate to the table, I get X percentage of it. But understand that that's not my money, it's not being paid. Now, what about this? We have the buyer, so we're the selling agent. And the listing agent and their broker decide to cut the commission at the request of the seller. Number one, if it's in MLS, and MLS said 3, no matter how much they cut it, they owe us 3. That's why you always have to make a copy of the MLS active sheet showing the commission rate at the time you make the offer. Because you know what they can do a week or two down the road. They can go in and take the bonus off or drop the rate, which they have the right to do. But I've got to have documentation that says what? At the time we presented the offer, the rate was 3%. And that's what we're entitled to be paid on if this deal goes through. But everything that's on this page already talked about in some shape or form. Your worker bees, they're expendable. Bottom page, 106. Last paragraph where it says sharing commission with a party to a transaction.
Highlighted.
Yes. Is it legal to share commission with a party to the transaction that is not pleasant?
No.
Absolutely. 61J2 10.029 paragraph 2. Well, let me give you a little scenario. My daughter, in the last few years, the last 2 or 3 years, sold their existing home and wound up, fortunately, finding a new one, and they closed on the same day. That was an interesting day. When she went to close on the sale of her first home, we gave, with Ben's permission, a credit of our portion of the commission to them for closing costs and prepayments. Then we went to the other closing and did the same thing again. And they walked out from closing with almost 6 figures. The buyer walked out with almost 6 figures. Thanks to my wife and I. Because we basically handed them back our portion of the commission. The question is, why is this legal? Because Mom says so. But to me, there's a simple logical reason for it. That money belongs to the parties to that transaction. Therefore, if I give them anything, all I'm doing is what? Handing them back their own money. The only catch is I have to make everybody aware of it. Easiest way to do that is included in the HUD statement. And then everybody who has any reason to have interest in it can see the credit.
So I just want to go slow. What you did was you credited them back, you used your commission to aid the sale, and that covered their closing costs. Okay.
Plus.
Got it.
Yep. But I didn't want to take the commission. Why did I not want to take the commission? Because I could have taken the commission and turned around and what? Yeah, spend it and give it back to them. Why did I do it the way I said? So I didn't have to pay taxes. I never got the money, so I have nothing to be taxed on. Just a little tidbit for the future.
This was
Now,
all in writing
what about this?
before or after the sale process? Like,
It was in writing.
did you set this all up during the whole?
During the negotiation of the contract.
Okay.
So it showed up on the HUD statement. Yeah.
Did you get a good Christmas present from her that year?
No, I got 4 grandchildren.
Oh. Aw.
That was a good answer, wasn't it? Yeah, actually, they're good. Good kids, like son-in-law and daughter. Right there if we need something, so can't complain.
So you did a good job.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know how much of that job was mine, but yes, we as a group, I don't know why, yeah. On the top of page 107, highlight line 7 where it says antitrust laws. You know what? Highlight lines 8 through 22. Take a look at it. First question. What's the typical commission rate that brokers charge in this area?
18?
I mean, we say 6% would be the typical. You're all in violation of the antitrust laws.
Oh, because you said typical?
No,
No, they can't be anything, so.
maybe you didn't bother reading
I
what
did.
that you highlighted.
Three.
Huh?
It's not three. Three for the buyer,
You can't fix it.
for the seller?
Well, what about both sides?
We didn't say so.
Doesn't make a damn. I wasn't talking about a deal. I asked you the question, what's the typical commission rate in this area?
You can't fix because we have.
I have no idea.
You have no idea, liar. Bad answer. I want you to tell me how you would answer me, the seller, if I made that statement to you, or question to you. How would you respond to it?
So it is 6%.
It's not percent.
Definitive, not typical.
You could say something to the effect
You're gonna look good in stripes.
Let's.
you could say something to the effect of, I'm not sure what other firms do, this is what we,
Right.
Signature.
this is what Signature does. Speak about your company and what they do.
Interesting. I never get agents to use the law and the regulation you have to operate under as to why you can or can't do something. What you do is you make it a point of discussion, and this is not a point of discussion. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, it's important that you understand this. There is the antitrust federal laws that said for us to discuss what other brokers in the area charge would be considered a violation of the antitrust laws, which I could find myself in jail. So, do I know what the other brokers in the area charge? Yeah, they're my competition. However, what we can focus on is why I charge 6%. By the way, what's the last two things you want to talk about in the listing presentation? Commission is one. Price is the other. Question: if they don't like me as an agent and they wouldn't give me the listing, does it matter how much commission I charge? So maybe you should concentrate on earning the commission before you tell them how much it is. Where's the value? Because when you're buying somebody's services or you're paying for somebody's services, which is what's going on here, where's the justification that I should do it with you and not
price.
with him or not
The
with
price,
her?
the price.
The company. That is a discussion for another point in time, but it brings us back to this idea of the antitrust. I cannot make a statement about, in general, as to what brokers charge. And I need to make sure I cut them off at the knees by politely explaining to them that the federal antitrust laws do not allow me to discuss commission rates of other brokers in the area. It's considered a form of price fixing. I could get myself in big trouble. I could lose my license. Now, once I make that explanation, if they won't show up, I'll pick my little fanny up and leave. Because if you're not willing to pay by the rules, I don't want you listing. You have to be willing to walk away. Well, I don't take it, somebody else will. Do yourself a favor. I can't think of a time, other than maybe a handful of times, where I heard an agent took it because everybody else was, that they were happy with the results. Oh, I can break into the community. Okay, so you get a break into the community by taking the listing at a lower commission rate. So what do you think you're gonna do when the next person might want to list with you? Are you gonna jack it back up to 6%? No. If anything, they will try to do what? Get you to go down. Will you negotiate your commission? What's your answer?
No.
No, that's your answer. No. Any other questions? You politely let them know what? I work hard for my money. Besides the fact, I only wind up on average 1.5% of that 6. Because typically, there are two sides to the transaction, a listing agent and a selling agent. So we're down to 3 and 3. And see, you're always on the 50-50 split with the broker, even if you're on 100%. I'm left with 1.5%. Now, I gotta pay for maintaining the car, for driving your crazy, you know what, around. I have to pay Uncle Sam. And exactly what you want me to do with, you want me to cut my finger off and give you the rest of it? But the average person doesn't understand that. You're getting 6%. No, I'm not. See, if they say that, that's your fault for allowing them to say it. Number one, I don't discuss commission until we feel we can work together. Because as far as I'm concerned, if we can't work together, I could be charging you whatever. This is a business situation. You need to act like one. Oh, by the way, if I can talk you out of your commission, you're not getting my listing. Because am I not hiring you to negotiate this for me? Is that one of these services you provide?
You're a wuss.
Yeah, you're a wuss. But the problem is, I've got to be tough, but I got to be careful what I say. And you know they're going to ask you about commission. Well, maybe 99% of the time. Every once in a while, somebody will ask. If they don't ask, what's that probably mean? Assuming they're still motivated to sell, what's that mean? I did one hell of a presentation. I justified my commission, so when it got to the point, there was no discussion.
Or they just don't care,
Mm-hmm.
which is great for you.
Well, I don't know about not caring, but I've shown them the value in my service. Anytime you do that, your odds go up of being able to get that job, whether it's a listing or whatever it is. On 107, middle of the page, line 28, where it says liens, let's put a bracket from the word liens to the bottom of the page.
You mean 21, 23?
Yes, whatever I said, yes, line 23, where it says liens, to the bottom of the page. And then turn the page,
Wait, 23 to the bottom of the page?
yes. And then on the next page, the whole page,
108.
108, whole page. This we have already discussed. It's talking about being able to put a lien on a property that is residential or is commercial, and my ability to place a lien on the property for my commission. When it comes to residential, if the seller agrees to it in writing, you can place a lien on the property for your commission. That's only in residential. In commercial, if it's a commercial sale, you can go after the net proceeds. If it's a commercial lease, you can go after the rent and put a lien against the rent. You can't, in the commercial, put the lien on the property. If it's a commercial sale, the net proceeds of the sale can be attacked. If it's a commercial lease, I can go after the rent. And what would happen is the judge would order the tenants to pay the rent to the broker until the broker had received all of their commission. Then they would turn around and pay the landlord the rest of the lease.
Is that typical language in a residential,
No,
no? Why would you do that? Would you have some trepidation that
Leverage.
you're not gonna get paid?
leverage. On page 109, bracket. From line 1 to line 29. Now take your highlighter and on line 4, I want you to highlight one sentence that starts in the middle of the line. It says kickbacks are legal only under limited conditions. Because next student told Gail, the trainer, that kickbacks were legal, Dale said so. Is it crystal clear that I did not say that all kickbacks were legal? I also didn't say a kickback meant it was illegal. It's the activity, not the name, that dictates that. So the term kickback, the term rebate, it depends on what type of kickback it is as to whether it's legal or not. The first one, on line 6, let's highlight the first sentence that says the parties to the transaction must be fully informed of kickback. Yeah, that's all you have to highlight. Right, moment. Example. I have a friend who does closets. There's no state law requiring it. And I refer him to my customers. And every job he gets, I get $50. That would be legal, provided, what? I informed all parties of the transaction.
You said it would be legal.
Mhm. So that specific situation, or it's somebody without a license to do what they do. The second one, which is line 12, highlight that first sentence. Now, a quick understanding of this. Title company, you refer 8 buyers to the title company over a 3-month period. What rebate or kickback can I get from the title company? None. How about this? Go back to my daughter's example. 3 months after she closed on her new home, she referred one of her friends to my wife to list and sell their property. Can I give my daughter a $100 bill for referring me?
Yes.
She have a license? You didn't ask.
I'm asking.
No, she doesn't have a license. Well, in the other example, she got paid twice. Why now are you telling me it's illegal?
She doesn't have a license, that's me.
In neither example did she have a license. Then tell me what the difference is.
It wouldn't be a referral, not you giving them.
Well,
Only $50.
she, in the second example, she's not a party to the transaction. They have to be a party to the transaction, either landlord or tenant, or buyer or seller. All these people that you're calling, if they refer people to you, if they have a license, they can get paid.
That's the
If they
referral.
don't, they can't. And of course, you want to recruit them to come here, because for the first year, you get 5% of the commission that they earn. And get to go to school for free and deal with me. And then be real nice, because I have the red pen in here. I have failed on your list, because I get a list, and this week was a little shorter, thank God, than usual. I get a list, an Excel spreadsheet, address, parties' names, commission, agent, comments. And I have to open up every file that matches up to that. And if I turn the line in the Excel spreadsheet red, they get paid. If it stays black, they don't. I have one, this one's probably almost one of my best ones. And I emailed on Thursday, I emailed this morning, I called at lunchtime. I assume, given those three situations, they're not interested in getting their money. So I turned in the sheet with all my merry way. That's why I say to everybody, if you get an email from me on Thursday, Friday, or over the weekend, it would probably be a good idea to respond to it, especially if you know you have commissions sitting out there that are supposed to be paid. That I don't get. Well, I tell you what happens, is there's two things that have to happen once you close. You gotta take care of the money and the documentation that has to go to payroll. But the other thing you have to do is go back and complete your file. So there's always those two things that you do. And then I look at the file, they look at the money, and if the two of us are on the same page, you get paid. All right, so far, we should have highlighted lines 6, 12, and 18. That's the first sentence of each one of those bullets. And then the last one, which is line 23, it says unlawful for a licensee to pay an unlicensed person for performing real estate services. Okay, we just have to talk about that, don't we? Okay. Put the lid on your, cap on your highlighter. Put it in the groove in your book. And close the book. Any writing instruments you're holding on to, please put away, because it cuts off circulation. Now, the first or second night, I gave you 2 terms and told you that you better learn them before we get to a future chapter. We're here. See if this looks familiar. Give me a definition for brokering real estate, and I want the one I gave you.
Dealing for others for compensation.
I'm sorry?
Dealing for others for compensation.
Perfect, thank you.
Ooh,
Good job.
fantastic.
You just saved their ass. Because see, there's this going on in the back of the room. If you're guilty, I'm proud of you. If you're not guilty, I'm not though. Then what does buying and selling real estate mean?
Buying, selling, with, for not compensation.
For yourself.
Yeah.
Why are you here?
Broker.
To broker real estate. Why? Because you don't need a license to buy and sell. You can do that just fine without a license. Which one has more requirements? Remember what I said about writing instruments? Does everybody remember what I said about writing instruments?
Yes.
To put them down and leave them there. I don't want you writing or anything.
I'm sorry.
Then you have to be sorry.
I think broker is real estate.
Well, we know the word brokering means I'm doing it for somebody else. There are all kinds of brokers out there, stock brokers, yacht brokers. When I say I'm a business broker, I'm telling you that yes, I'm involved in this particular industry, but I'm not buying and selling anything. I'm assisting clients or customers in either selling or purchasing some item. Well, we have the best item. Do we not? How many of you in here don't need real estate? Because in some shape or form, you need real estate. When we get to the estate chapter, I'll explain that. Now, we know that as a broker, I can open up my own office and operate my own name. It's called a sole proprietor. However, I don't think most brokers are going to function under that category. Why? Too much liability. No tax advantages. So there are other types of business entities that can be used to broker real estate. Some of them can, some of them can't, and we'll look at that in just a little bit. Now, I've set up two groups of people that can be found in these business entities. Officers, directors, general partners. Why did I lump those three together? To me, one word. Give me the other two letters. I realize these are big words I'm using here. Are they not the people in a business entity that run the business? The people in the second group usually only do what?
Manage.
No.
Sit back and collect.
What is the first one?
They invest,
Establish.
they collect.
And limited partner? The first one is established, human?
What?
Okay, the second one?
Stockholder, which is an owner in a corporation.
Yeah, stockholder?
Holder.
Holder.
It's not, excuse me, you're not supposed to be right.
I know it's killing me.
You mean run from those? and
Because you
go
read
after
it
the
like-
other ones?
No,
Forgive us, how.
Which one of the two groups of people on the board actually run or operate the business?
The first one,
The first group. And which
Yes.
one's typically there as an investor
the second
and
one,
usually not involved in the day-to-day operation?
the second one.
Now, that's a general statement that can be about any business or any type of ownership. We're talking about real estate. It says any officer, director, or general partner who performs performs any of the 8 services
Must be,
of real estate must be licensed as active brokers. All others must be inactive brokers or unlicensed persons. I have an LLC. My mother and father are president and vice president. They do not have a real estate license. They are not involved in the day-to-day operation of the business. Is that arrangement legal?
No.
Yeah. Well, you have it, right?
They could be a limited partnership.
Now they're officers and directors, the president and vice president. The 3 of us. I have a broker's license. They do not.
They can, if you have it, they can have it. Right?
Sure they can.
Well, that's being active.
Any offices,
Well, do they perform any engineering services?
direct or general.
No.
Everybody stop for a second and listen. He asked me a question. Eddie asked me a question. Ask the question again.
If they're not performing any of the 8 services of real estate, they do not have to be licensed active brokers.
Bingo. They put up all the money for me to open the business. Why did I put anyone?
Anyone can invest in.
Right. The limited partners and stockholders typically do not get involved in the operation of the business. Therefore, anybody can be a stockholder. Could a sales associate be an officer, director, or general partner in a brokerage business?
If he's licensed, yes.
Sales associate? Show me on the board where it says sales associate can be an officer, director, or general partner.
Must be active brokers.
Yeah, I didn't say broker.
Brokers. Have to be brokers.
And the next time somebody in this room put a salesperson and a broker on the same level, I'm gonna knock you out. Because I asked that question again, and you got it wrong again. Some of you, he was talking, and the rest of you were thinking about it. There's nothing to think about. You never put a sales associate on the same level as a broker. But, are you ready for this? They can own the business and hire you, the broker. But, guess what that means? Everything falls on the broker. I'll give you an example. I had 2 attorneys come to a Frec1 class, even though they didn't have to take the class. They figured they'd better if they wanted to pass the test. So we got to talking, because anytime in class, especially when I was teaching, I always was listening for people with backgrounds, so I could pick their brain. Learned a lot about this business by talking to the people that actually do it. And then, if you're sitting in the office with people who do no business, get your ass up and move someplace else, they're dangerous. I'm serious. they are dangerous to your health. Or go back in the conference room, take your phone, start calling people. Or go down into the shopping center with some cards, name badge on, talk to people. Most of them will look at you like you're on drugs. But if I can get 1 or 2 or 3 people to talk to me, it's been successful. So the 2 attorneys wanted to open up their own real estate company. Because of the type of legal work they did, it would have been very beneficial. And we know in the state of Florida, you can't become a broker just because you're a member of the bar. So they took the course, and they came to me about 2/3 of the way through the course and explained what they wanted to do. At that point in time, you had to have 1 year's experience before you could go for the broker's license. They wanted me to be the broker of their company, so they made me an officer in the corporation. They were stockholders. And for a year, it was my responsibility by law to supervise their activities. Then we had lunch the day after they passed the state exam. And I got fired. Why?
You got what?
I got fired.
Why?
Because they didn't need my license anymore, they had their own.
Mhm.
That was stupid of me to help them pass the state exam.
So you have
I helped them right out of a job.
and you lost the job.
It's okay. Not a problem. It's called multiple licenses. I've had as many as 5. Now, you realize the potential of scenario questions you're staring at right now?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll try a few. Now, rules. Your mouth shut. Everybody know what keep your mouth shut means? Okay, just checking. All right, I'm gonna throw a scenario at you. And we'll vote. A corporation is formed by 3 persons. 2 of them are going to operate the business. The 3rd person is going to assist in the advertising and just invest. So you're basically going to have 3 owners. 2 of them are going to operate the business. 1 of them is going to assist in the advertising. They're all 3 going to be stockholders. My question is this. And again, I'm talking. My question is, how many of those 3 people have to have active broker's license? Now, let me repeat the question. And remember, mouths are not supposed to be making sound. You've got 3 people forming the corporation to broker real estate. In that corporation, 2 of them are going to operate the business and invest, and the 3rd one's simply going to assist in the advertising and invest. My question is, how many of those 3 people must have active broker's licenses? Now we're going to vote. You got a choice of 1, 2, or 3. How many of you say only 1 of them has to have an active broker's license? How many of you say at least 2 of them have to have active broker's license? How many of you say all 3 of them have to have active license? Now, anybody that didn't answer at least 2 should be shot. because it was clear that two of them were operating the business. If they're operating the business, and it's a brokerage, which I said it was, they have to have an active broker's license.
And
Phrase they'll use in the book is at least one. So how many have to have broker's license? Not one. Even if it's only one, the answer is at least one. That always opens up the possibility that there might be more than one who would have to have a license, depending on what they're doing. Now, the real question is it 3 or is it 2? How many of you say it's 2? How many of you say it's 3? And those of you that said 3, why?
Advertising.
Hey! It ain't bar sale, it's advertising.
About one was.
You did what?
Second one too, then the advertising.
You heard you use that word again.
Advertising, because the broker has to finalize.
Now, wait a minute. I have a problem with this. I've got a marketing department over here, there's 3 of them. Only one of them has a license and she doesn't do anything with it. Are we in violation of state law? If you have to stop and think about that, I would knock you out. We're talking about people who run the business, not the people who work for the people that run the business. Which, at the moment, does not include you. But you realize that a non-licensed person can own a brokerage firm. But they'd have to have at least one person who had an active broker's license, or the business couldn't function. And there are investors out there who own or have invested in real estate brokerages.
That includes this one.
What do you mean?
Well, that's what Ben said,
What?
that he had these guys that provide the money for him to operate the company.
And those, most of them people are called real estate agents. You ready for another one? Okay, here we go. You've got a corporation formed to buy and sell real estate. In that corporation, you have 3 active brokers and 3 active sales associates. All 3 of them are going to be officers in the corporation and stockholders. My question is that a legal business arrangement? I'll repeat it, no comment. Corporation formed to buy and sell real estate. In the corporation, there are 3 active brokers, 3 active sales associates. All 3 are going to be officers in the corporation, and all 3 of them are going to be stockholders. Is it legal? How many of you say it is legal?
it is legal.
How many of you say it's not legal? How many didn't answer? Which way you going?
No.
It's not legal? Okay.
What you said when I don't know the same.
How many of you say it's legal? How many of you said it was legal? Why?
Because you said that
Because
the
the
active broker
sales
is.
associates could have been investors.
Can't justify your answer. I have a problem with that.
But you said
Are
the
there
real
6
estate associates were all gonna be officers, and to be an officer, you've gotta be an active broker.
Okay.
Or an inactive
That's why
broker
it's
on
not
a license
Yeah.
person.
Except I said buying and selling, I didn't say brokering.
Lieutenant. So it's legal.
I said buying and selling, I didn't say brokering. I told you, first thing you have to look for in these questions is it brokering or is it buying and selling? Because that totally does what? Change the answer. That question went from no good to okay.
So it is legal.
Because they're buying and selling. I mean, you can't say it's legal, you have to say it's legal because they're buying and selling. Or it's not legal because they're brokering.
These are typical state exam questions, though, where you're
No.
gonna a paragraph, you gotta
No.
dissect the paragraph
No.
and take the one.
Nothing like what's on state exam.
But you know what I mean, though, right? Where
Yeah,
she'll give
nothing
you a
like
whole
anything you
scenario,
see
you
on the
gotta
state
pick out
exam.
one sentence.
Don't get my license thing right.
I'm still confused with the first question, when you said there's three people. One person was doing the
Thank you,
advertising, and
guys.
one person was running the office, why couldn't the third person be unlicensed?
Because I said two of them were gonna operate the business. So right off the bat, I'm at two. Before I got
So
past
then
the first
third
line,
has to do the advertising.
I'm at, so you have to understand the relationship in the question. But first and foremost, I've got to pick up the brokering versus the buying and selling. I have to look for that first. Then I'll get into the scenario.
So which was it? Was it legal or?
It was legal because it was buying and selling real estate, not brokering.
Okay.
That's why that was the first thing I wrote on the board, not the last.
So John.
You gotta pick that up in the question,
John.
because the question can look identical,
I was obviously.
except for that, those two phrases.
So sorry, we're still a little fuzzy back here, I'm sorry.
We?
Don't be.
Well, sorry.
I see the bailing on you. Go ahead.
Okay, the question you proposed had 6 individuals in total, right?
No, the question I proposed said buying and selling. Now talk to me.
Didn't it say 3 officers, 3
Yeah,
sales?
but I said buying and selling, I didn't say brokering.
Yeah, and if you say brokering is gonna be unlimited, because you're saying buying and selling is gonna be.
For yourself.
Okay, but how can someone create a company just buying and selling?
It happens every day of the week.
Okay, without a license, you can.
If I'm not brokering it, if I'm doing it for myself, I don't need a license. I need the license if I'm brokering it, which means I'm helping other people buy and sell real estate.
So it has
If
to
you're
be
buying
licensed.
and selling your own property, you're buying the property, you've got a contractor, you fix it up, you flip it, you go to the next one, then the next one,
Okay,
that's buying and selling.
that's,
You don't need a broker's license to buy and sell your own property. And if you have the license, it doesn't matter. You just have to disclose your license.
so then you just flip the scenario to brokering, then.
Then we got a big problem. The sales associates would not be allowed, they would have to back down to stockholders. They could still stay and work for the company and be a stockholder or limited partner, but they couldn't be an officer director, they couldn't be in a position of authority.
Can they go like voluntary inactive to become a director?
Yeah, but can't do anything.
Hmm.
Can't do any of the services of real estate, so you're useless. Don't mess with my scenarios. The reason for it. And I don't care what the question is, you're not gonna get it wrong because of this. You're gonna get it wrong because you don't put that on. So you really have to train yourself to make sure that when because these questions can be 4 and 5 lines long. Obviously, just to be able to set up a scenario, it's gonna take a few, plus they can bury stuff.
Yeah, just pick out
So I know when I get a question, I can tell that's where they're going with this, that they're into this subject matter. Then I back up a second and say, okay, where does it tell me what it's doing? And sometimes they'll use the term brokerage corporation. They won't say that the corporation was formed to broker real estate. It may just say a brokerage corporation.
Which means the same thing?
Yeah, because we use the word brokerage a few times here, I think. So they may shorten it up, which wouldn't be as obvious as brokering real estate.
As soon as we see brokering or brokerage, that's it.
Yep.
But it would have to be,
That's telling you what type of business, no matter what type of business it is, that business was created to broker real estate.
As opposed to the public buying and selling.
But that's why I made such a big fuss out of that, because if you don't pick that up, this goes from easy to deadly. This is not hard.
For you.
If you get past, well, it's not hard. Number one, there has to be at least one broker, one active broker. Then my next thought is, okay, what about everybody else? I found a broker, okay, so I know I've got at least one. What are the other ones doing? Well, if they're performing in the 8 services of real estate, and they're sitting as an officer, director, or general partner, then they gotta have a license. Either that, or they gotta back out of that and go into the ownership. I mean, they don't have to leave the company.
You mean an investor.
Right. Well, for example, let's say that Jamin, decided to get his sales associate license. Now, he's an officer in these brokerage corporations. What would happen if he got his sales associate license? He would have to be removed from each one of those as a officer, vice president, whatever he is. That's why he's never, we've talked several times, and he says, I should get the license. And I said, for what? And what you're gonna have to go through to get back to where you were, so you gotta take a step down to be able to take a step up. And it made no sense for him to need to do that. That's not his role in the company anyhow. This company's got a great combination of owners, an attorney, a crazy man, I mean, Ben, and Jack. I mean, you got 3 extremely important cogs in the wheel. How important is Ben's function? And Jack's, as we get bigger and bigger, and of course, then there's the attorney sitting up in West Palm Beach, who's 8 phones all the way. Oh, we have a whole bunch of attorneys because of the size of the company we are. All right, let's see, where are we? All right, let's do this. Bottom of page 108, if you will. What says types of business entities?
108 or 9?
109, yes. At the bottom of 109, I want you to highlight lines 30 through 37. And then I want you to turn the page. And then I want you to highlight lines 1 through 8.
1 to 8?
Yes.
So we didn't get any stock today, huh?
There's all the business entities in one nice little chart. My first question about that group of businesses, how many of them can buy and sell real estate?
All.
How many of you say only 6 can buy and sell real estate?
What was the question? I'm sorry.
My question is, looking at those 11 business entities, I want to know how many of them can buy and sell real estate. How many of you say 6?
6.
How many of you say 5? How many of you say all of them?
Buy and sell?
Yeah, I said buy and sell.
I said 6.
I said,
I didn't ask you how many of them could broker real estate. I asked you how many of them could buy and sell.
5, 6. Why?
I say all.
I said all.
so who is correct? Is he mad? What's wrong?
Okay. On line 9,
Yes.
I want you to highlight where it said sole proprietorship.
The sole proprietorship.
Proprietorship, yes. And then in that same paragraph, I want you to highlight the last sentence, where it says a sole proprietor who holds a current active, I'm sorry, it's the wrong one.
Can be formed without.
That can't be formed without filing with the Department of State. Basically, you have to get a business.
19 and 20.
You got it, that's
The last sentence,
it.
which is the middle of 12 and 13.
Can you see? I'm trying. I saw here, right? No. Here. I saw.
On line 19, highlight partnership.
On paragraph?
No, line 19, one word. Partnership. How many types of partners do you have in a general partnership?
The general.
1. I said what types of partners, not how many of them.
Person,
On line 26, I want you to circle the most important word in line 26, but tell me what it is before you do it.
real estate brokerage.
No, that's words. I said word, singular, brokerage. The word real estate doesn't tell you that they're brokering. The word brokerage tells you that they're brokering.
But it doesn't have to be a real estate brokerage, because it would be a brokerage of something else.
Well, not this class.
Okay. Okay.
Now, let's highlight the 4 bullets under general partnership.
And where?
4, right?
And there are 4 bullets, lines 28 and 29, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 on the top of the next page. Here's what I want you to do. The 4 bullets that you just marked, I want you to compare it to the notes on the board. I want to know if there's conflict.
So compare which one? This one?
Yeah.
Last two?
Now, the 4 bullets under partnerships, I want you to compare it to the notes here and tell me if there's anything that conflicts. Is there anything that conflicts?
Well, it says,
What? Go ahead.
it says at least one partner must be licensed.
Right.
All.
That doesn't say all, it says any.
Okay, yeah.
The last bullet where it says
At least.
broker associates may not be general partners.
Right,
Okay.
that's correct too. And that's what it says there. See, what can be confusing is a person without a real estate license can be an officer in a brokerage firm. They just can't perform any of the 8 services of real estate. Jack's a good example of that. But he doesn't take listings, he doesn't deal with any of that, he deals with the money side of it.
Who
which
is
makes-
Jack? He's the,
He is the accountant,
okay.
he's been his partner.
Is he an investor?
Yeah, there's 3 owners,
Okay.
Jack, Ben, and Mark. Mark, you see it functions. You'll notice the wording, and I compare it to the any, that phrase at least one, line 29. Just near the bottom of the page. It doesn't say one,
Say at
at
least
least
one.
one. That means anybody
One,
that's performing
more
any
than
of the
one,
8
more than
services
one.
of real estate has to have an active broker's license. Now, obviously, we can do it with one, as long as nobody else was functioning as a broker. All right, before we look at limited partnerships, I'm gonna take a break. Time is everything. Time flies now. No stuff.
It's like so non.
I didn't sign for
Attendance?
the absence form.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm gonna move forward. Thank you for the, I didn't get one today. I'm gonna ask you. I'll meet you. Pardon me, this is a quick question. I went into Century Village, I was there, I went to real estate office.
Actually, there's nothing worse than like knowing material, but then when they change a word, they get it wrong. I just
I
want to kick
was
myself.
so, you and I were the only two who raised our hands in that question because I was so sure
Yeah.
that I was right, but I missed the buy-sell part.
You know what I'm realizing now in class is that I am better when I'm reading it because I see it. But sometimes when I'm listening to it, I just don't catch it. You know what I mean? That's
I mean, well, you can ask, but
That's so silly, I hate that.
I can listen to this all day long, it won't make sense to me, because the words that it tricks me, it tricks me.
I have to catch up. No,
Well, I
I'm
have it like over my phone.
That's good.
Well, my parents' credit, but I don't know, you don't think I should bother, or?
Either way, for.
Vacation? Send them an email. Send them an email. Okay, cool, thank you. Hey, lady, how are you? I'm good, how you doing? Good, thank you. You going out to get air? Yeah, I think I will. Sounds like fun. There's a water fountain here, isn't there? Oh, you know what? I have another thing of water in my car, never mind, but thank you. Maybe I should take pictures now. She will be.
Started for 103.
Oh, thank you, my dear. Spoiling me. It's such a great idea for the picture.
You like high chews? Aren't they good?
Yeah,
They're really good.
I know, they're like addictive. Uh-oh.
Did you go for that walk the other day?
I did with Michelle.
Nice.
The
Sorry I
woman
missed
that-
it.
No, we'll go. I
Yeah.
told her,
Okay.
you know, we gotta get a circle of friends. We live in the same,
Oh.
Area.
yeah, we're neighbors. I meant to bring the dog food, but you know when I went to Hertz today, I bought a car.
Did you?
Yeah,
Nice. What kind?
it's just your Toyota Corolla, nothing exciting, but I like.
What, through Hertz?
Yeah. You can see all their cars online,
Okay.
and they let you take it for 3 days. If you wanna try it out, bring it to your mechanic, and then if you don't like it, you bring it back, but then you gotta pay for the rental, but if you buy it, you don't have to pay.
Oh, I see.
But, you know, if you have a mechanic that you love around here.
Yep.
I'm just such a mechanic. So things are good?
Yeah, not bad. You?
Yeah.
Just gotta wake up. Phew. Had a
Oh,
busy
tell me
weekend.
about it. I left the house at like 10 o'clock and then I ended up here. I never got home again.
Wow.
It was stormy. I can't leave home and have something to eat. But it was the Hertz place. and
Yeah.
I was
Yes.
like,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Gotcha.
Very hard.
The older you get, I think life gets a little more complicated.
It's definitely a challenge.
And you have more on your brain when you're older and you're trying to do this than you would if, say, you were
To
like
do
22
this
and,
after so many years,
yeah,
what a challenge.
that makes sense. I'm so glad he throws those tricky questions at us though, because it really does make me have to focus harder, and that's what's gonna help me on the test.
Positive thinking.
I'm trying to think positive, yeah.
You gotta. I gotta get air. Oh.
There's a lot of people starting to drop off in this class. I think there's a girl that used to sit next to me that hasn't been here in like 3 or 4 classes now.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
He's so funny that we don't agree to have less of a commission, because I know these people do that every day. They take less commission every day. I see that happen.
Oh,
in
no,
my
there's
work.
so many things that
The-
we
the
discussed
agent
here,
does.
it's so different, because we
The-
all know that.
The agent, I don't want to like throw anybody under the bus. I'm just gonna
He
say,
wants to teach us that, he wants us to be the
the
way.
agent that is trying to sell the building where I work, I heard my boss.
I'll take my civil commission.
Well, it's a $4 million building. She's taking 1%.
Oh, first one.
She just wants us to.
And
It's probably still a lot of
when you
money.
start thinking about $4 million,
Exactly.
and it's still a decent chunk, you know.
Rick was going to get a job, but he wants to train us.
And he says like, you should walk over that. I'm not walking over that. If someone says, you know, you can take a 50-man commission, or you can take a 35, I'm not walking, I don't get 50, I'm
What do
taking
you do
35.
for?
My love, I'm
I'm
wondering,
actually, I in my
Huh?
current job, it's kind of an eclectic job. I manage and
Turn it
curate
up,
the
so
largest
please.
collection on sports in the world.
No kidding.
So I authenticate, I
Wow, that's
sell
interesting.
stuff, it's like Babe Ruth stuff, it's
As
all the
son,
stuff
you
from
know,
all the
all
greatest
about it.
athletes.
Wow.
So we have a museum on Federal, we can go through and check out the museum.
Uh-huh.
We sell things, we evaluate collections, I drive to people's houses, and do all this sports stuff. Like a guy, Bob Murphy, died for the Mets several years ago, he was their sportscaster, so his family had Mets stuff, and I went out to their house and I was checking it out. You meet a lot of athletes that come in. Now it seems like you have all these boxes.
I think that once in a while, so I can't. I don't even have
It's
any.
really nice to think about.
I do not.
It's Federal Highway.
Well, I moved down,
My
neighbors on
No,
that.
don't take it out. Just leave it there, just
So
fold
it's,
it
I
so it
have
doesn't.
like the shortest drive to work, my drive to work is like 4 minutes.
You're already started?
I don't know. How do
I'm
I
in
operate
Hidden
without?
Valley, which is.
I'm having like
Yep,
crazy
yep. I'm like right
Look,
on
I
my
guess late in the day.
Yes, yeah, we live right in the same little area.
Familiar. I feel like I've seen you.
We probably have, I've probably been walking down the street, you've seen me or something, yeah, exactly.
Like, not big things, but
I like that neighborhood,
Me too.
I like my neighborhood, I like where we live, I
surgery
think
and
it's
then
pretty cool.
It's crazy how you go north towards Atlantic and building.
Yes.
It wasn't my
Oh
fault.
my gosh,
I
every
wanted to
day.
clear another car.
Makes you want to do commercial, doesn't it?
I know, I'm thinking about doing
And then
commercials
it's just like
because, okay,
insurance
my
for it,
dad's
and build
behind
it up.
that my business.
Every day.
He
I'm
goes
so
through
sorry.
real estate people like Spinal Tap, he goes through drummers, like he goes through, we've literally, I've met like 25 people that have had
It's
our
really
listing
early and they
themselves.
got it and they were like,
I'll
they were
stay.
looking
And-
like this.
And, you know, we've had all kinds of things happen, like people pull out at the last second.
And all of a sudden I start
And my boss also,
What do you guys
so.
my boss also, we were right by Renzo's Cafe, the pizza place.
I became so
Building, I own.
much
You know, in
more
Renzo, it's kind of a
appreciative
long story, but
than
my
I think
boss
I
was supposed to
was
not only the
because
vacant lot that he has right down the street.
And I never let
We were
myself be
supposed to own
vulnerable
the
and
land
become
for
care
Renzo's,
about
and
it.
Renzo like screwed my
But
boss.
sometimes God has a way of moving you on your path.
The stories that I'll tell you, they're better than TV, I'm telling you. I'll have to tell you sometimes some of these funny stories, but they're.
Yeah.
It all really happens out there, because I've seen it with my own 2 eyes. Yeah, well, my boss. My boss is like, he has to have it his way, and once I come over, I just go my way, I'm not doing that. And a lot of people that have that kind of thing, when they're ready my boss has
You know what?
I was going through the guy who's going to be buying it.
Oh, really?
And so I was watching the episode, it's this guy, okay.
I've seen every episode.
After my mom died, everyone kind of went That was another thing.
It's like, who's gonna get the better of the other guy? And it's gonna happen. And it's gonna happen for 2 years. They get back into negotiations, they'll like, not talk to each other for a year, and then like, they'll come back together, they'll start up again. Well, it's not the business, we're trying to sell them. Stay in the building for a couple of years, so that's my segue to this, I'm going, I got this time. Well, you know what? You know, the funny thing is that the person has the that's how I know what happens.
And then when you get out there, you'll find your way.
He's trying to keep us.
Really don't do that. It's just me.
Bending right away.
Health.
The first person.
Medical conditions on the radio.
I gotta tell you something funny.
Just like talking about certain supplements that he's done. They're all about insulin, they're all about.
Yep.
Couple of stuff, some realistic brain not I could just try it. Absolutely. You know what I was thinking? Exchange numbers for me. Do you know what you're gonna?
I called my girlfriend, she's still on the phone
Farming,
about a
target
loan that they
marketing,
closed
whatever you want
last
to
week,
call it.
at the end of the week.
Mine is.
And they're gonna lose $10,000 because people in Denver said, we fucked up, it's our mistake. And the guy's credit went from this, and like 4 months later, went to that. And they're just going, it's like it's the end of the world thing, it's like DEFCON right now. And his, her boss was saying, don't worry about it, it happens. But it's on her. And it's his job, it's his job. And everybody backs in.
I am telling you, I'm
So it's on her bonus.
I mean, I cannot.
So I said, you want me to go like the Naples and break his finger? I'm gonna put him down for a month and then your cells will be up,
If he starts out.
right? I'm trying to do that, I put him down for about 2 months. What is he gonna do? Who's gonna take his job for him? And she's up, her team's up.
Let's just put my name
I'm trying to be mafioso.
Florida now, shake, they go by switch.
Okay, guys, I'm done here. Next question. What's the difference between a general partnership and a limited partnership?
One, you have to have a program.
Limited has to be only two,
So any partnership has to be at least two.
Limited
Okay.
partnership.
So it must be one.
One runs one.
General partner
You're still not answering my question. You're reading the notes very well, except you're not answering the question. The question is, what was the question?
What's the difference between general?
What's the difference between general partnership and limited partnership?
Oh, the general partnership,
And watch, limited partners. Because if I take the limited partners away, what am I left with? A general partnership. And if I take a general partnership and add limited partners to it, it's now what? Limited partnership. That's why the difference between the two are the limited partners. Because the terms and conditions and requirements of the general partner are the same in either scenario. The difference is when you bring in the limited partners. What can the limited partners do besides invest? Nothing. That's why we put them down here with stockholders rather than up there. Because when you think of a limited partnership, the limited partnerships are just that. The limited partners are just that. They want to be what? Limited. They're investing money, they're investing property, but they don't want to get involved in legalities. Kind of the same thing as a stockholder. Does a general partnership have to register with the Secretary of State? The answer is no. Does a limited partnership have to be registered with the Secretary of State?
Yes.
The answer is yes. Why? Because you got two different types of partners. And so you have to identify to the state who's general and who's limited. If you will notice on page 111, lines 19 and actually lines 15 and 16. Start with. On line 25, what's the key word? Program.
Okay.
Did I have you highlight the bullets on the previous page?
Mm-hmm.
And do the same thing here. So what I put on the board so far has covered two of the broken entities without having to remember all this shit. At the bottom of page 111, there's a term called ostensible partnership. It says they are prohibited. I want you to write beside of that paragraph, illegal.
Illegal?
Illegal?
Mm-hmm. What's it mean to be illegal?
Against the law.
Sick bird. Forget that on the way home. Depends on how you break the zone. The question is what they're talking about, because if it's illegal and it's prohibited, why would you talk about it? probably the best scenario where that may occur is a situation like in the office buildings where they have those executive suites. They have a central reception area, and there's 30, 40, or 50 people in there of all different businesses. And they have a phone system so that the person answering the phone answers according to which phone number rang. The key with preventing it from being an unstable partnership is that they have separate phones, they have separate letterhead, they have separate signs, even though they all may be up. In other words, so that they don't give the impression of being one big group. Where that probably used to be the biggest problem was they take a room like this and they'd use those dividers, and each person would have that, and they'd have a filing cabinet with a lock on it to keep the stuff in. But if they appear to be one, there's no clear separation, then they're treated like one. They're treated like partnerships, and therefore they would have the liability of a partnership. Not something that you're gonna have to worry about. Because the last time you're gonna see that might be on the desk. And it would have to be the state exam, because they know this one. On the next page. The limited liability partnership. I've noticed that doctors, medical practices, a lot of them are the LLPs. I've seen some real estate. What's the whole purpose of this limited liability partnership? The first word. In other words, the group is never liable. Just the individual. All right, in the middle of the page, we have corporations. My first question is this. Does a corporation have to register with the Secretary of State?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It says there are two types of corporations, foreign and domestic. What's a domestic corporation?
It's a corporation formed within the United States.
Within Florida.
Within the.
Foreign corporation
Outside of Florida.
outside of Florida. Outside the country, alien.
Oh, alien.
So when the Martians get here, they may want to create a alien corporation.
So it's not international, right?
Hmm.
It would be international.
So can a corporation created outside of the state of Florida be able to register as a real estate broker in the state of Florida?
Yes.
Tell me the two main things they would have to do.
Register with.
In order.
Register with the state,
Register with who?
the Department of State.
Register with the Department of State. That's one.
Have a broker, license.
Have a broker who does what? Registers the corporation with DBPR. Because you had to do two things. You had to get permission from the State Department in Florida to do business in Florida. And then if that business is gonna be brokerage, I gotta have at least one broker who now registered the company with DBVR. It's kind of repetitious. It's the same scenario all the time. Okay, well, let's highlight lines 30 through 32.
In Florida?
Yes. And you've got 7 bullets.
Highlight all the bullets?
Just highlight the bullet. Save your highlighter. Take a close look at the first bullet on 113. And then the last two are the nonprofit corporations. I have friends that have brokerage firms. Sometimes they feel like it's nonprofit. Don't think you're gonna find too many real estate companies registered that way. And then the LLC is kind of the modern version of the corporation. You can tell by looking at the names of the different companies under signature. If they're LLCs, you know they're relatively new. If you look at Central Village, which was the first 4 offices, they're all Incs.
How did you refer to this then? They're all what?
Incs, incorporated. And then the last thing on this part of the chapter is vacancies of office. Let's put a bracket around this, please. The only broker the corporation dies, how long do they have to find another one?
14 calendar.
14 calendar days. And then, but that they refer to as a temporary. They have to have a permit in place within
60.
60 days. But I mean, you got a situation where there's one broker, 20 associates, 25 associates, and they walk in one day and find him slumped over his desk. Actually happened. And he was looking to retire, so they had been interviewing with different brokers to come in and take over the management of the company. And they weren't thrilled with him, even less so, because the gentleman that died liked him better than everybody else did. And I happened to be ex-students, and they approached me and said, you know, we're trying to negotiate to find a full-time broker. I don't remember if the 60 days was in play at that point or not. But I wound up registering as their broker. Fortunately, a few weeks down the road, they were able to find someone that was a good fit for them. And again, I lost my job.
At least not the way the other guy did.
Made more money off of them, though. What happens to your license if that 14 days goes by and they don't get a temporary in there?
Gone.
Involuntary, right?
Involuntarily inactive. Yeah, it's gone. You still have the license. It's just inactive. And why is it inactive?
Because you don't have a broker.
You don't have a broker. So how do I fix that?
I getting a broker.
By getting a broker who notifies Frec that they got a new associate. All right. On lines 39 and 40 on page 113, the last word on line 39 is what? Not. I would like you to highlight that and start. Why did I do that?
Just to make sure.
Because it talks about registering as a broker, as a brokerage. And if I missed the not,
It's gotta be.
it would read a little differently. The first one is right at the bottom of the page. It's called a corporation sole. I think they should have spelled the sole differently. Never mind. At least the two of you get it. Now, how many of you bought property here in Florida? Okay. Did your agent have both sides of the deal? Or was the listing agent somebody else? Somebody else? Okay. And I assume that you probably found the property from the MLS? And they gave you a sheet with all the information about it? It's called a joint venture. A joint venture cannot be registered as a broker, as it said on previous pages. However, it can function as a broker if both sides have broker's licenses. The best example of a joint venture is the multiple listing service. Because a joint venture is considered to be a one or few transactions together versus a partnership that's put together to do a lot of transactions. And there is no permanent relationship. Yes, we're a member of the MLS and we agreed to go by their rules. And we might do a deal now, we might not ever do a deal again, or we might do it tomorrow. That type of business arrangement would be referred to as a joint venture. One or a limited number of transactions.
Can I ask, who runs the MLS
Realtor Association.
in Florida?
In this area.
In where?
In this area.
Oh, in this area only?
That's all I can speak.
What?
Because you go over to Naples, everything's different. Contracts and everything are totally different. All right, on page 114, starting with line 5 through 18 bracket.
What?
On page 114,
Do what? Highlight or?
bracket. And then highlight and then star. Right down. Bracket, highlight, and star.
The whole thing?
Yeah, you can leave that one word out at the end. So starting with 13 through 18.
The whole joint venture, not the whole joint venture?
So this was the first star of the day, right?
No, there was one other one.
All right, top of page 115, if you will. Talking about trade names. Let's go with a bracket from 1 to 30. What's a trade name?
Name used.
Business.
Fictitious name.
Business.
DBA.
Business.
Other
Shrek is a DBA. Who's Shrek?
The Disney character.
No.
Whole bench, right?
No. Signature, real estate, company.
That's
That's a trick question.
a business name,
We didn't know.
trading.
Training.
The main company is Quad Companies. And Signature and Real Estate Companies is a DBA of that company, because that was the company that started first. Can a sales associate use a trade name?
Can you ask the question again?
Can a sales associate use a trade name?
No, line 21 says no.
Yeah, I know. What does that mean? I mean, you'd have to read. So lines 21 and 22 should be highlighted. Because that would put them on the same level as a broker.
You can't do this.
Let's go with the bracket from 23 through 42.
You mean 31, 42.
We bracketed from 1 to 30.
Oh, okay, so we go from 31 to the bottom of 30. That continues on to the top of the next. Can I use an LLC as a sales associate? The answer is yes. Well, what's the catch? Because there is a catch. You can only use your real name and stick a LLC after it. In other words, I could do K. Dale Doyle, comma, LLC. I can register that name with the department. Now, liability, tax reasons is why you do that. That's what they're talking about in that last paragraph on the page. That last paragraph, talking about the sales associate, the broker associate as a star. $39 to $42. It actually rolls over to the next page.
39 to 42,
And then to the next page.
so we're gonna highlight this, because
Yeah.
we'll be back.
And then a paragraph at the bottom, which continues to the top of the next page as the star.
Dale, where's the star on that one?
Just these two highlighted. And on the other page. And from 1 to 4,
Yes.
116 highlighted, right?
Correct. That's part of that previous paragraph. Okay, the last topic in this chapter is personal assistance. Now, there's actually two types of personal assistance. There are ones with a license and there's ones without. Always the big discussion here is about what can a personal assistant actually do. Well, a couple of things. One that I don't know is I can't show them property. I can take them to the house. I can open the door. I can stand there as security, but I cannot guide them to the home. I can't talk about the home. I'm only allowed as an assistant to answer questions off a pre-printed form. Because you haven't figured out that pre-printed form would be a demolition sheet, which customers actually get a copy of too. To me, a personal assistant is an administrative person. Can a personal assistant, unlicensed, follow up, make appointments for the licensed agent?
Yes.
Yes, because if the licensed agent has already made contact with the person, they might say, I'm gonna have my assistant call you back to arrange the time. Because when you got agents that are selling 70, 80, 90 units a year, it's impossible to keep up with it. Too many things happening at once. That's where that assistant comes into play. And any of the top producers have it. Can a personal assistant, unlicensed, prepare contracts? Answer is yes. Can a personal assistant, unlicensed, prospect for the licensed agent?
What is prospect?
Soliciting for business.
Yeah.
Answer is no. That requires a license. Following up after the licensed person has done prospecting, got 3 or 4 leads, then that person can call for the purpose of setting an appointment.
The secretary.
On steroids, yeah. Now, my assistant is doing such a great job, I've decided to give her $100 for each closed transaction. Would that be legal? No. If she's unlicensed, it would be illegal. Let's assume, however, that she's licensed. She gets a per hour fee and $100 from each closed transaction of the agent. She's got a license.
She's getting a salary.
So,
If she has a license, people, she can receive any form of compensation.
Hear me out with the salary.
Compensation. Who pays the salary? Bullshit. It's your personal assistant, you pay for him. Are you on drugs?
Good try.
You sound like the agents we have here.
Look out.
At least we're starting to think.
I can make a fortune filling out forms. And I love it when a new agent comes in that has absolutely no clue what they're doing and has this deal. And they won't share it with someone that can help them do the deal. Fair warning, I throw things. You pull that move, you gotta be on drugs. Because all that happens is the deal gets screwed up more often than not. Because the agent don't know what they're doing.
everyone gets zero.
And-
They don't share because of the compensation.
Yeah, they don't want to have to give up money. Oh, better yet, they don't need training. is the best and worst thing we've ever created. But it wasn't designed to be a personal assistant. It was designed to deal with issues, which it does constantly. It's a blast in there listening to what's, I don't do as much because I've got some clients, but it's interesting to listen to everything that's going on in there.
Is that this building?
The major group of the upper management is in that wing. And of course, they deal with the more complex situations. But that's a good thing too, because of the fact that you're never out there hanging out, trying to figure out what to do next, and how to save the deal. That's the time to call center. Because if the person called can't help you, they can escalate it to wherever it needs to go. Who pays the $100? That's a per transaction. Per transaction requires a license. So who pays the $100? My brother. If I just paid her a straight salary, that goes directly out of, well, it still comes out of my pocket, it comes out of clothing. But that is a form of compensation that requires a license. Because you're getting paid per transaction. That's where profit comes in. Which is fine. Good deal for everyone. Okay. That was fine, let's move on. All right, 126, 127.
You're gonna pass all on, finish?
Huh?
117, nothing?
Nope. 126 and 127. This is Vocabulary Central. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different legal terms. Let's start with this. What's the difference between commingle and conversion?
Commingle?
And conversion.
To mix the money.
Conversion is when you just sort of take it outright to be yours, and commingling I took to be when you sort of mix together funds that should
Right.
be.
Well, think of the word commingle. What's commingle mean? You're mixing up two different things. Conversion is I'm converting it to my pocket. How about concealment and misrepresentation?
Concealment and?
Misrepresentation. In plain English.
Concealment, you're withholding information.
Untrue.
Whereas.
Misrepresentation.
Concealment
Untrue.
is withholding,
And the other one you're just saying something's not
Untrue
true.
information.
and misrepresentation is lying.
Is untrue, yeah.
Culpable negligence versus moral turpitude.
What is it?
Culpable is not.
Culpable negligence and moral turpitude.
Negligence and
Carelessness is the word to describe culpable
involves
negligence.
negligence conduct.
Carelessness was
And
culpable
then
negligence?
Yes.
One is made on purpose, the other one was just negligent.
Yeah, stupidity.
Stupidity.
Moral turpitude. I've seen them in the past use the phrase a wicked or shameful act. It says includes contrary to honesty, good morals, justice,
Accept.
or accepted customers. custody. And you see some of the example, embezzlement, larceny, robbery, nice stuff. Moral, material facts.
Information-backed relevant to the person making the decisions and affect the value of the input.
To me, there's a little bit more to that.
Material facts are like, what would be a deal breaker if the person,
And also the fact that, that they're aware of. This is a law of disclosure, not necessarily a law of discovery. Whatever you know, seller, you need to tell. That's why we use a questionnaire, basically. Then we had the disclosure form that we had the sellers fill out. Because to me, it's, well, what do you know, what material facts can you tell me about the home? Look at me like I'm on trucks. It's much easier just to go down those questions. Well, can you tell me about anything that you think may be an issue with something with the home? No, my home's perfect. And then the number one reason people lose their license today is failure to account and deliver.
I'm sorry, can you say again?
Failure to account and deliver. Last Starker seminar I went to, it was the number one reason. It used to be conversion, almost consistently across the board. But it's not as much about the conversion of money, but not doing things in a timely manner. There are so many time factors in the contract. You have to stay on top of it. Well, actually, total brokerage will help you. We have a section on it that's dates, where you can actually put in there, it will actually notify you that you have a inspection coming up or whatever it may be that's on there. Plus, it's a lot more helpful for me when I'm reviewing the file to make sure that everything's happening on time. Okay, before you turn the page, the rest of the chapter talks about the process of dealing with a violation of 475. It talks about the penalties. What would kick off, or potentially kick off, an investigation of a licensee? What would probably have happened? Somebody filed a complaint. And the complaint would have to be legally sufficient to act as that. Has to show some evidence of a violation. Then we send out investigators to do what? Gather facts, information. Do they make decisions? No, they simply gather facts. Where it goes next is called the probable cause panel, made up of members of the commission. What's the function of the probable cause panel? They're given all this data that the investigator has gathered. What's their job?
To determine
There's
if there was
sufficient cause to
a
charge.
violation.
If there's probable cause. That's why they call them a probable cause panel. Meaning, there's enough evidence here to show that they did something wrong. That's sent back to the department. If the department, which would be their attorneys, agree with it, a formal or administrative complaint is filed and sent to the licensee, which means you're in deep doo-doo. Now, you have a couple options. You can give up. You can negotiate a deal. Or you can go through a formal process that includes an administrative law judge who will recommend to the commission your innocence or guilt, and then the last place you wind up in most cases is in front of the commission. And they will make the final decision. It's pretty much like a grand jury situation. Because you got the probable cause panel that says, yes, we've got enough evidence to charge them with this offense. And then they go through the rest of the process, and it ultimately winds up at mom's feet. The one thing I picked up on when we were at the commission meeting, we were there the day of requests and violations. It's not nice to piss off mom. Because a couple of them come in there and they get a little testy with the members of the commission. I could see it coming. If you've got that kind of attitude in front of the people that can put you out of business, we sure as heck are not going to put you back in front of the population, yeah. Okay, that was pretty easy. So now let's do it again, starting on 128. You'll see in the gray box at the top, it basically breaks it down into 7.
On 129?
129, whatever I said, it was 129. You'll see that there are 7 steps. All right.
Yeah, I like that.
No. On the same 129, line 1 through 16, put a bracket.
So 1 to 16?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what, make it run it to 20, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Once you've done that, go up to line, the end of line 4.
The legally sufficient, accomplant, is legally
You know,
sufficient.
you know what? I want you to highlight starting with line 2 through 9. Starting with line 2 through 9. And a start. What does it mean to say that the complaint is legally sufficient?
Agreed, it had enough information to move forward and cross go to the next step.
The next step would be investigating, not the probable cause. In other words, there's enough evidence in the complaint filed by whoever filed it to indicate a possible violation of statute or the rules. And they'll then send out the investigator, who will do just what investigators do. A year from now. Yeah, you'll find that they're not super fast. And part of the reason is the number of people in town versus the number of licensees is very disproportionate. At the bottom of the page, oh, I told you it was a star, right?
Yeah.
At the bottom of the page, where it talks about the investigation, let's go with the bracket. Line 25
To 32.
and 32.
But there is,
Continuing, 1 through 18.
18 or 19?
We can go to 19. You have that little paragraph that talks about summary suspension? Normally, you're allowed to continue to function
While you're being investigated.
while you're being investigated. It's kind of, you're still innocent until proven guilty. However, if what they're being accused of could potentially put the public at harm, they have the ability to issue something called a summary suspension. Now, what that does is it speeds up the process. If that's the case, then they would send out an investigator right away. They said that they rarely, if ever, use the summary suspension. Yes.
What's a good, like, example, investigation, like, somebody doing something wrong, like what?
You mean like the 3 tons of cocaine they found in his boat?
Yeah, where?
In his boat,
In the guy's boat?
yes.
Oh, in the property, on property.
And he had a real estate license. Oh, by the way, when you have professional licenses and you screw up and lose one, guess what? You lose them all.
Yep.
I kind of embellished a little bit on that simply because of the protecting the innocent routine. All he got was a 10-year suspension. So here's the question. Under what circumstance would the Florida Real Estate Commission issue a summary suspension?
You're just too dangerous to leave out there.
And the answer is, they don't. The department does.
Yeah.
Yep. Love those trick questions. Reading comprehension and no ability to hear and listen. You know what?
Does this happen in all of your class? Reading comprehension?
I don't know.
Are
You're not done? Then you stay until you're done. I'm going home.
Can I ask a question before
No questions.
Yeah, can
Not
we,
yet, not yet.
wait, don't go.
I'm not going anywhere. Relax.